Welcome back to the channel, guys. I got a very special guest on today. We are chatting with Steve from Crypto Crew University. His channel on YouTube is fantastic, and I'll leave a link to his channel, his YouTube, and his crypto Twitter in the video description as well. Steve loves to discuss the macro cycle, looking at the charts, which we absolutely love as well. Steve, thanks for jumping on board and chatting with us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent, because we've got big topics to discuss as per usual, being at the bottom of these markets. Specifically today, we want to look at the Bitcoin bottom. How do we know if it's in? And I think from your analysis, we're pretty confident that the bottom is in. That's what we want to look at today. Have you got some charts and discussion around that?
I'll show you this chart, Jason. We can start here. This is one of my favorite charts that is super clean, it's super clear, and it presents a really clear idea. So on this chart, we have a yellow line and we have a red line. The yellow line represents here the 20 MA, and the red line is the 100 MA, and we're on the weekly chart. And whether you have 25 years of experience or 25 minutes of experience, we can all agree that there's only a few times that this yellow line crossed below the red line. We can all agree that it crossed here in 2018. We can agree it crossed in 2015, and we can agree it crossed in 2022. The interesting thing is when precisely did they cross? Because what we're doing is we're looking at Bitcoin's entire history and we're trying to understand these two moving averages and how they play together. So in 2015, we had a cross down from the yellow through the red at precisely the market bottom. So that happened in 2015. And as we scrolled forward to 2018, the same thing happened again. That was the second time in history that we had a cross of the yellow through the red, and it happened precisely at the market bottom. So now we say, okay, we've got 2 data points. We don't have 12 data points or 100 data points, but we have 2, and they're saying exactly the same thing. Let's look at what the market did recently in 2022. So in 2022 was the next time we had this yellow line cross through the red, and it happened precisely at the market bottom. In my opinion, is the market bottom. What happened in this market bottom is on our channel, we started calling for a mega crash around here, the 48K. And we were just following charts similar to this to understand that, and particularly this 3-day death cross. So back in 2018, we called for this 3-day death cross, and then we had a pretty big crash. We were on schedule to have a 3-day death cross, and then we had a big crash. So it happened in the same instance. And when we actually went down and we started looking at the 17,500 and comparing it across multiple charts, I didn't think 17.5 was the bottom until all of the charts were screaming that it was. And then we put out a lot of polls. And Jason, you know this, in trading and in markets and in any market that has money, you always want to bet against the high majority. And the high majority was about 85% believed that this was not the bottom, that we are going a lot lower. So we had that as a one data point, and then we had this chart and this chart and this chart and this chart and this chart all saying the same thing as well. So it was kind of like a wake-up call, like, wow, this is probably the bottom, and it will take everybody by surprise. And still 120 days later, the high majority still believe we're going a lot lower. So this one chart with the simple line crossing is one concept that the bottom is in. The next one is that 3-day death cross that I told you. If you look at the history, there's been a couple 3-day death crosses where this green line crosses the red, or the 50 MA crosses the 200 MA. And right after a 3-day death cross, we usually meet the market bottom. It happened in 2015 and 2018. As soon as we had this 3-day death cross, we reached our bottom within about a month. So it wasn't like we were waiting 10, 12 months or a year. It was literally like within a few weeks to a month, we reach our market bottom in 2015 and in 2018. And now we start to analyze 2022. Okay, we had our 3-day death cross here. And after a couple weeks to a month, this could very well be our market bottom. And then we want to analyze the movement. So let's hypothetically say the bottom is in because of these charts. How has Bitcoin been reacting after that? What's happened in the price action over the last 120 days? Well, we've pretty much rallied up to this green line, right? And if we look at past cycles, we reach our bottom, we try to rally up to the green line. We reach our bottom in 2015, and then we rally up to this green line a few times. So we're right on schedule of where we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be rallying up to this green line. We're supposed to be getting some resistance. It's supposed to take a little while. At least this is how I'm viewing the charts. Another one that we can represent is this one is super clean and clear. We have the golden zones, right? So Jason, when you're on our channel, you talk about a similar like a golden zone, like a perfect zone, a perfect buy range. We call this buy range below the 21 monthly MA, right? So whenever it's below this 21 month, that's usually the best time to buy. But then you ask yourself, well, sometimes it's below there for 10, 12, 15 months. How do you know which candle to buy? You look at the RSI on the monthly. And when you reach around 43, that usually tells us the precise candle that's the bottom, right? And back here in 2018, we reached around 43 at this candle bottom, which happened to be the bottom. And right now we're right around 43. We're inside of this golden zone. So this should be a minor wake up call to those who are waiting for 8K or 7K or 5K or 3K or whatever the number is. We're knee deep in the golden zone. We're the most oversold that Bitcoin has ever been in history. And this is not my opinion. This is just the RSI is oversold and overbought. We're literally the most oversold in Bitcoin's entire history. We're knee deep in the golden zone. And these other charts are saying, hey, the bottom could very well be in.
With all of these signals together, that essentially allows the beginner trader, like you said earlier, you got 25 minutes of experience or 25 years. It's a signal to say now might be a good time to start buying Bitcoin, not necessarily cryptocurrencies, but Bitcoin, if you don't already have a position that you are comfortable with.
I know what it's like to be on the side that, hey, we're going a lot lower. I know what that feels like. I know what that mindset is, and it will destroy your portfolio. It's more risky to be out of Bitcoin right now than in Bitcoin. We have fallen to levels that historically are screaming that the bottom is in. And even if we do fall lower, this is a beautiful time to dollar cost average and to not be out of the market. Because what usually happens around market bottoms, and this happened in 2018, we were saying the same thing. We were saying, hey, the bottom was in, and everyone was like, no, 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 we're going a lot lower. And I said the same thing back in 2018. It's more risky to be out of Bitcoin than in Bitcoin. If it falls lower, you can just buy more. But what happens is those folks that wait for it to go lower, like they did in 2018, they end up buying up here and then they get destroyed again. So you have to pick your poison. You want to minimize risk, you want to maximize reward. This is the perfect time to start dollar cost averaging in.
It goes well with the old saying, buy low, sell high. It's not buy the bottom, sell the top. The saying is buy low, sell high. So, with this particular strategy, how did you come up with just using these particular moving averages? Is this something that is known out there in traditional TA, or do you go and back test each of these moving averages and try and, like, not in a bad way, but do you try and curve fit it so that you find some data points that work and then readjust these moving averages later? How do you find the data points?
I like to analyze like the bigger picture of trading, especially with crypto. I think crypto moves really fast and people get caught up in how fast and all of the shiny objects. So I like to compare cycles. So I'll look at all sorts of different charts comparing cycles. One of the things that stood out to me was the 3-day death cross, or the death cross in general. Back on YouTube in 2017, 2018, nobody was talking about death crosses. And I thought, okay, this is interesting. These have massive power, and they're more movements of a long-term movement. A lot of people in crypto, they want to know what's going to happen today or tomorrow, but a death cross will tell you what's going to happen the next 3 to 12 months. So I tried to have that philosophy, and I try to look for all the charts that appeal to that philosophy, because then crypto feels a lot less overwhelming and a lot more manageable, because people are on emotional roller coaster. So this chart and this chart, it's like, hey, these moving averages crossed back in 2018. Let's see how they're going to do in 2022. And then when they crossed at the market bottom, it's like, okay, we're potentially onto something. You know, this chart we've been following for many years. It's really simple. If we go below the 21 monthly, it's a good time to buy. If we reach the 43, so it's just looking at different cycles and trying to analyze, how did we know back then that the bottom was in, and did it repeat in the next cycle, and what is it saying in this cycle that we're currently in.
So, say this level you got here at 43 on the, I think it's the RSI on the, would be on the monthly chart. Do you just look for a point that it crosses at the low on the RSI and the low price on the candle and say, 40, no, there were no touches. So it's not a good data point. And then just sort of work your way up until you get a couple of data points and say, well, 43 is a good level. Because that's not like it's not a default setting to use 43 on the RSI.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things in play here. Number one, we want to look for confluence in the market. And number two, looking at the big picture, 43 is not going to be a good number 5 years from now.
Gotcha.
Will be lower, because we're not getting quite as high as we used to, like here, and we're going to get lower as a result of not getting as high. So this number is good for now, but we'll have to adjust it going forward, and knowing that this is obviously our resistance now, which it's never been. It's always been our
Mm.
support. So it's going to take some time for us to get the movement above here. And then, a handful of years from now, we may see 37.
That's good to know. And I thought I really wanted to dig into that a little bit more because I see that on your channel with a lot of the moving averages. I'm like, where did he get the 20 and the 100 from? And connecting those, maybe one day it's going to be a 71 and a 34, like what are the importance of those numbers? I don't know. But if you can explain it like you've done here and understand that you've got to, adjust with the times, then you end up becoming the mechanic of this system and you know how to fix this system. And that's really important for anyone starting out in crypto. If you do not know how to fix your plan, if something is not working right, you're basically just gambling again. And I see that, both you and I see it often across crypto Twitter or crypto YouTube. There's a lot of just picking charts and saying, hey, this is showing up really good signs of a top or a bottom. And you're like, how did you get to that? There's no reasoning or background as to how you come up with the decision. And a lot of people who are very new to the market, and I was one of them, you're just like, this looks fantastic. I'm going to go with that. So, I appreciate you going through and just explaining that sort of simple process in a little more detail, because it's pretty much vital. If you can't figure that out, then you can't put a plan together. So yeah, good to understand that with the bottom. And so with the bottom, this is specifically for Bitcoin. What about cryptocurrencies, altcoins? Does it work for that? Is it time yet? Should we dig into that? Do you have something else you want to talk about with Bitcoin first?
I think with altcoins, let's be honest, why are people not all in Bitcoin versus altcoins? In everyone's opinion, altcoins will earn them more money. So it comes down to greed. But I think that's important to talk about first, because then people will look for the altcoin that could make them the most money, 100x, 1,000x, all these crazy things where it just boils down to greed, and there's with higher risk, there's higher reward. However, if you study Bitcoin's bottoms, altcoins generally bottom around the same time. It's not like Bitcoin will bottom here and altcoins will bottom up here, or altcoins will bottom back here and Bitcoin bottoms here. It's usually right around the same time. Bitcoin leads the market for now until the future, until proven otherwise. So,
Mhm.
a general rule of thumb, if you believe that it's a good time to start dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin, it's probably a good time to start dollar cost averaging into altcoins.
And that's the altcoin against its USD value. Because I often like to trade altcoins against their Bitcoin pairing, which tend to bottom later. But you're specifically talking about the USD value of the altcoin.
Yeah, that's a whole other conversation. This is what I
All right.
teach in my courses as well, to use your Bitcoin and Ethereum to maximize that value using an assortment of other coins and looking for the position in and out on the cycles. Bitcoin is usually in power for like 3 to 6 months, and then altcoins will be in power for 3 to 6 months. And if you can just master that specific little nuance, you can multiply your portfolio. But I think that's a whole other discussion.
Yeah, it's something that's a far more active than just sort of dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin at specific levels that you can identify on the chart in advance. I think we wanted to look at when will we know for sure that this is the bottom? Do you have some analysis on the signal that will say, yes, confirmed bottom?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite charts. So this chart, we have price action on the top. We have the stochastic RSI on the bottom, which is basically our momentum, and we're on the monthly chart, right? So Bitcoin has repeated the same pattern every 4 years. And I know, Jason, you mentioned a lot about cycles. You will probably like
Yep.
this. Every 4 years, we repeat the same pattern. And each time everybody will chant that this time is different. So 2014, what happened is the stochastic RSI dipped below the 20 level, which told us we're losing our momentum. We're in big trouble. The 20 level is the most critical level of the stochastic RSI. Precisely after that happened, Bitcoin had a very large rally, 50% rally to get everybody really excited. Remember, Bitcoin likes to trick everybody. Okay. So we dip below here, which is a warning sign. Then we have a 50% rally, get everybody excited. Then we have a mega crash. 4 years later, we did the same thing. We dipped our toe below here. We had a 48% rally and then a mega crash. Precisely 4 years later, again, 2022, we were back in January saying, hey, we just crossed below this level. Just be prepared. We might have a very large rally around this level. We had a 50% and a 48. It ended up being a 47. And when we got to this level, we called for a mega crash just based on the facts, non-emotional. It was really not a popular thing to say. And then we had this mega crash. The cool thing is the same chart tells us when the turmoil is over. Just following the stochastic RSI, we simply want to get back above the 20 level. That tells us momentum is in the market and it's here to stay. So we crossed above the 20 level here when we were still at a very grim price, right? We had moved sideways for a whole bunch of months. And this told us, hey, the turmoil is over, this bear market is over, and that's when the bull run started. And the same thing happened in 2018. Once we crossed above here, price was roughly 4,500. It was a very short-lived bear market, but again, this sign came in that was like, hey, wake up. It's time to really get into the market if you're not in already. So in cycle number one, it took 579 days to get back above here. The next one took about 400 days. And so far, we're about 273 days into this. So, 3 to 6 months from now, we're going to cross above here. And that's going to be the telltale sign that, hey, this consolidation period is over. This turmoil is over. And we're in the mix of a potential next bull run.
3 to 6 months. That sets us at around January to March of 2023.
Somewhere around there. We'll have to
Yeah,
gauge how this is going, but where we are right now, even if Bitcoin became really bullish, it would still take a minimum of 3 months just to get up here. No matter how bullish Bitcoin is gonna be, and you can just look here, right? If you look at the January timeframe, we didn't get back above here until May, right? We
mm,
were down here in January, then we had a cross up. It takes a while. So those are rough estimates, but right now you can see that we have the orange line on top. Orange line on top is not good. We want to have the blue line on top, which means we're rising, and then to get up here. We still have some time.
plenty of time to dollar cost average into the market, set yourself up, set the positions. If you don't have any money left because, it's all got blown in the bear market, like we can see from the data, roughly 3 to 6 months, maybe 9 months, you can save. You got your weekly pays, set a plan where it's not going to send you broke, those sort of things. And there's time to be getting into this. And yes, like we both have said, this isn't going to make us rich. Bitcoin, is buying here at 20 grand and selling at 100. It's probably not going to make you rich, but at least you've got that grounding position for investing. And then altcoins is another discussion, a huge discussion on its own.
Absolutely. I think if people continue to stay level-headed, continue to look at the facts and the charts, the news is not there to help you. It's there just to get you to click on things so they can make more money. I would really recommend your audience avoid the news, focus on the facts and the charts, try to make non-emotional decisions. The more you can remove emotion from this, which a lot of people want to get into altcoins that have some favorite altcoin, and then they think that's going to make them a lot of money, and then they have greed, and then the greed starts making all the decisions rather than them making the decisions. So try to avoid all emotions, stay level-headed, make sound decisions. Don't try to hit home runs or throw Hail Marys. Small wins will win this game.
I always say leave the home runs and the Hail Marys for once you've made the profit, and then you can actually use that in the real physical world, not in the digital world, and waste your emotions and trying to hit home runs on a bar going up and down. Like, it looks exciting on TikTok or Instagram or on YouTube when you're watching these people make these mega trades, but it really shouldn't be. And that's when you go and use that money to buy your Lambo or whatever you feel is necessary for your life.
Absolutely.
So we've looked at the low and a confirmation of when that low can come in, maybe quarter one, quarter two of 2023. So it's not really that far off. What about if we're wrong and the bottom isn't in? Is there a macro Bitcoin capitulation coming up from this low? Any possibility of that? And if so, how long and the price?
With Bitcoin, there's always a possibility. And as a disciplined trader, you always want to understand both sides. You never want to be emotionally tied to one side or the other. That's when greed and emotion will start to rule your decisions as opposed to sound financial decisions based on facts. So with Bitcoin, anything is possible. But how likely is it? I don't think it's likely that we see a major capitulation below 10K. I know this is a very unpopular thing. The high majority of people believe we're going below 10K. The charts are saying that's not likely, but we need to be prepared for it. So if you started dollar cost averaging in now and we fall lower, you just continue dollar cost averaging in. If you look at the big picture with this chart we showed earlier, there was one, two, three, four of the best buying opportunities of your life. One of the four is right now. We're living in it now. We are in the midst of it. So whether we've bottomed or not, that's up for debate. What's not up for debate is this is one of the five best buying opportunities of your life. Period. That's not up for debate. So start dollar cost averaging in now. If we crash lower, great. Then you continue to dollar cost averaging and you will look like a superhero in years to come.
How did you get the bottom of this zone? Is that something you talk about publicly, or is it saved for members and that sort of thing of this
No,
particular zone? Yeah.
no, this is for public knowledge. We talk a lot about, finding the bottoms and finding the tops. A video is going to be coming out. It's super interesting, which is a simple mathematical formula that has accurately predicted the bottom. But I think when you look at the bottom, like for this chart, we find the bottom based on price action being at a certain level below this moving average and the RSI being at a certain level. So on each chart, we kind of have the bottoms. Where can we find the bottom in this chart? It's literally like 3 to 4 weeks after we have the death cross. So there's a lot of different ways to look at it. What I try to do is look at all of my favorite charts that have helped me have success since 2018 and continue to look at them. And where when they're all saying the same thing, I like to head in that direction.
And that's the buy. That previous one where you had the golden buy zone, would you say then that that low in the square, yeah, that rectangle, that chart would now be brought up like that big square? No, sorry,
Oh,
rectangle.
sorry. Is that what you meant
Yeah,
earlier?
yeah,
No,
yeah,
it was
yeah,
just
yeah.
like, no, I could have been, looking at the wall and accidentally,
Uh,
this is
all right,
not a box drawn to fit
to
like
buy at
this.
that bottom.
It was
Okay,
just showing like, we could drop lower, we could be here. Who cares?
okay. Yeah, the most important part is this is the time, which is, I guess, more important. Like we look at with our GAN analysis, time is the most important, and you've basically identified this is the time, and then as the market goes up, we look for that next time, which is obviously the time to be selling. Speaking of selling and altcoins, is there anything else you wanted to add to the Bitcoin discussion before maybe talking a little bit about altcoins, or that's it?
No, I think the big picture with Bitcoin is don't sit on your hands. The biggest mistake traders make in bear markets is sitting on their hands waiting for a price to come.
Mm,
This historically repeats every single cycle. The high majority of the people will not buy anywhere near the bottom, and those people usually won't get back in until we rise up here because they're still in disbelief. The biggest thing you can do is don't sit on your hands.
big time. Definitely, it's not the time to be sitting on the hands, especially like now and at the tops. On the ride up, that's that's when I like to sit on my hands a little bit more because that's the enjoyable ride. That's the going to the moon, the exciting part. You've done all the hard work, and yes, it's a few clicks of a button, but emotionally now is the hardest work. And it's weird to bring up emotions with trading, but go through 1, 2, 3 bear markets, go through a top of a cycle. It's all emotion. It's crazy. Speaking of tops, Bitcoin's top. I reckon that's a good place to, um, you know, finish up for our discussion. Looking for the next top. I did see something of yours, and I saw a couple of comments. People were asking about this 5.3 multiplier of, I think it was the previous top, the previous Bitcoin top, something like that. Is that? Can you explain that a little bit more? Looking for the next top, just in brief detail.
Yeah, I think, this is a really blue sky topic. Nobody on planet Earth knows even if the bottom is in, let alone where the top could be. I think there's two things I would like to point out. Number one, if you look at price action, this price action of having one top and then having a double top, it's never happened in Bitcoin before. And if you study other markets, this is usually foreshadowing of a larger move sideways for multiple years. I just want to throw that out there that Bitcoin might not get above 100K for some years, even though I believe the bottom is in. This is usually a telltale sign that we could be range bound between 70 and 10K and 70 for literally 5+ years. That's point number one. Point number two with the 5.3, I was just playing with the charts. And I think we have it here, Jason, but it's in the midst of these 20 charts here.
All right,
So
fair enough.
I don't know where precisely it is, but the 5.3 theory just came about from studying past cycles and this current cycle and how they could play together. Here it is here. But it's super interesting because it takes into consideration, okay, this is cycle number one. We reached this top and we know that this was the bottom, but how can we use this data to tell us where the next cycle top would be? And the number 5.3 came and it repeated again. and then again, and then again. So it becomes really fascinating to decide where the next top could be, a blue sky. But what this theory has as our next top is somewhere around 90K. So this will freak a lot of people out. But then what we've noticed is obviously, there was 320,000% return. And then we went to a 60,000%, and then 11,000. And now we just had 2,000. You can see that Bitcoin's growth is really slowing. This is not an opinion. These are facts. And if we extrapolate this theory out, it tells us that we could potentially never have a top of 100K or more, which is a little bit scary. I don't mean to throw a wrench into things, but we have to be open-minded to different scenarios. Nobody on planet Earth knows, but what we can't deny is that Bitcoin is slowing its growth in a huge fashion by a multiple of 5.3 every single cycle. It's growing 5.3 times less than it did every single cycle down to the T.
I, it does sound scary because you're sort of expecting, well, everyone's expecting it 100K or 250K or 500K, or, Kathy Ark from, what is it? Kathy Wood from Ark Invest says $1 million Bitcoin, and such says another $1 million. And Chamanth Parrot, whatever the guy's name is from Google, ex-Google guy, all these billionaires. My point is the billionaires are telling us 500K Bitcoin, $1 million Bitcoin. The facts, the data in the charts are saying otherwise. And with that little bit of knowledge, that can really help the beginner, hopefully, just avoid the noise. And when we talk about noise, I guess you're in the same boat. I consider most of those billionaires noise. Nothing really of what they've said has played out in the market. So to me, it's basically noise. I know it's probably a very unpopular opinion. They have a lot more money than me and so forth. But if I want to get to their level, I don't think I should be listening to a lot of that noise and the news and these sort of opinions out there when, like you've just pointed out here, the data in the charts are saying otherwise. And of course, we always have to preface that with, no one knows for sure. But at least if you can understand that, then neither do the billionaires.
Yeah, and it goes back to greed. I think if we look at charts like this that are really, really different, that present a really, really different idea, that looking at it's based on math and it's based on facts. So it'll set a little bit more realistic expectations in your head rather than some greedy number of Bitcoin's definitely going to be $1 million and everybody's going to be millionaires. It's not likely everybody's going to be millionaires, just looking at
No.
human history. So it's an interesting chart. Who knows what's going to happen, but this sets a different tone and perhaps a more realistic expectation of the next cycle.
Totally love it. And it really just puts into perspective all of those other comments out there about Bitcoin has to reach this amount because there's only 21 million out there and not everyone can own one Bitcoin, and there's all these millionaires. Like it's so much garbage. When you actually look at the maths like you've done here, it's definitely telling us a different story. So I appreciate that, Steve. And I hope everyone that's been watching has appreciated it, and they drop down to the video description. Check out Steve's links to his YouTube channel and crypto Twitter. Thanks once again, mate, for coming on board. Hopefully we'll have an update on the channel again soon. You guys let us know in the comment section if you want to see Steve back on as well. Any last words before we wrap it up?
I appreciate you having me, Jason. It's been a pleasure.
Excellent. All right, Steve. Thank you once again. And thanks everyone for tuning in today. Till next time, peace out.